Hey guys, Rob here at 3D Printscape. So today I'm going to go over another 3D scanner. I've got the Creality Ferret Pro here, so I'm going to do a video covering the unboxing, going over all the components, how to set them all up, and going over a scan with you. I'm going to go into setting up everything on the computer and then also show you how to use the mobile app as well. Before we start diving in, I did want to cover one thing. There are a couple different buying options when you're looking at this 3D scanner. You can get it with or without the battery bank or the pretty much the handheld device here, and without the wireless bridge. If you are using a Apple device, you are going to need the wireless bridge if you want to connect it to your phone. If you're just connecting it to the computer, it doesn't matter. Though the portability of it is really nice, and it's not that much extra if you want to get the setup that allows you to use it mobily. So if you're in the market for a 3D scanner, just whichever option you go with, I would recommend getting one that has the mobile support, just so you have that portability. If you have any questions about what I'm covering in this video or would like to see any other videos, go ahead and leave a comment below or join us on Discord. And if you haven't already, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. Thanks. All right, so here's the CR-Scan Ferret Pro 3D scanner. We're going to go ahead and open up the box, see what's all in it. All right, so firstly, it does come with a really nice travel case here. So let's open this up. Obviously, we have our instruction manuals here. The handle itself, which is also where the battery and everything is at. You see here on the controls. We'll go into that in more detail in a bit. The adjuster piece here to change the angle of the camera. A tripod, if you're going to be using it on a tripod versus holding it like that. So this will just open up like a normal tripod. Here's the actual scanner itself. Here is the wireless bridge, which we'll go over all these individual components when we actually go through how to actually set it up and use it. And then a mount for the devices here. Then up top we got, I think, all of our cabling that we're going to need. So just set this off to the side. Some markers. All right, so now let's go ahead and set all of this up. All right, so now that we've done the unboxing, I'm going to show you what all the components are and how to put them together. The first option I'm going to talk about is how you can set it up if you're not planning on using it with the mobile, so pretty much as standalone, just connected to the computer. So you won't need this, or this, though you can use this if you want it just as a height increaser for the actual tripod. But if you're going to just be connecting it to the computer, you can use basically this little tripod base. With the adapter here, just screw this in. And then just go ahead and attach the camera. So it's just going to slide right in. And then you can turn this to adjust the angle. And then when you're actually going to be using it, you're going to use the longer cable that was provided. It's going to plug into the back right here with the USB-C, and then plug into computer with the standard USB. Now, it does recommend using a USB 3.0 port. If you use the 2.0 port, it gives you a warning on the software, and it will restrict the actual frame rate it can process. Now, if you want it to add a little bit of height to this, all you have to do is really just unscrew the tripod, and then you can plug the battery base into the tripod here, and then just add this either here or here, whichever way you're looking at, and that will just add a little bit of height. And it could be useful in some cases, depending on what you're trying to do, and then it would connect the same way. Now, if you're using this with the mobile app, you're going to want to add the Wi-Fi bridge and then the actual phone holder. So to do that, obviously you'll just connect your battery pack to the tripod base. Then once that's on, you'll connect your Wi-Fi bridge. So it doesn't really matter if you put this on the front or the back. It's just which way you're going to be holding it. So most of the time I'm holding it like this with the power button towards me, which means the camera will be facing forward. So in that scenario, I would just put this on the front so that on the back here I would have my phone. So just put this here and then kind of screw it in place. And then you would put the phone holder right behind it. So I'll just go here and that will screw in place as well. And then from there, you'll put the actual scanner on the top and just slide it in just like you would on the base. And it's all set. Now you'll want to run the cables. So you have two options here. All right, so the main way you're going to set this up if you're using the mobile is you're going to use this small USB to USB-C adapter, plug it in right at the side here, and then run it right to the bottom of the Wi-Fi bridge. Oops. And then at the top of the Wi-Fi bridge, you've got your USB connector, and then that's going to connect into the USB-C connector on your scanner, and that's all connected now. And then you'll turn it on. You can see I actually hit the power button so that the light's on now. So it's on. To turn it off, you'll press it twice. It shows you how to do it here. So just once to turn it on, twice to turn it off. But now let's go ahead and talk about how to actually connect your phone to this. So I'm going to change the zoom on the camera to connect, look at my phone. I don't actually have a good screen capture device for my phone yet. One of these days I'll get one, but for now I'm just going to put the camera at the phone. So I'm going to do that really quick. All right, now you should be able to see my phone here. You'll want to use the Creality Scan app. If you don't have it, just download it from the App Store. It's supported for both iOS and Android. If you don't have the Wi-Fi bridge with your Ferret Pro, you won't be able to use the iOS device. You can only use Android, so they have a couple different tiers. I'm going to go into that, and then you'll see some of the scans I was messing around with before, but you'll see here that it's not connected. Now, if you read the reviews on this app, most of them are like they can never get it to connect to the scanner. The first time you go through, it tells you that you have to connect it to your Wi-Fi. The actual Wi-Fi bridge has to be connected to the Wi-Fi on your phone. If you disconnect from the device, or if you power it off and power it back on, it's going to disconnect you from the Wi-Fi bridge and connect you back to whatever Wi-Fi you had set up before, because that has the internet connection, so it's going to try to default back to that. So let's go ahead and connect to this really quick. So just go into our settings, and then you should see the network here, and then when you see it, just go ahead and connect to it. And then once you're connected, if we go back over to our app, and you should see this connection now. Yeah, it took a second, but now it turned green. So now you can do a new scan. Now, if you click on this bottom area, you can go into your scan settings. So you have the object type, small, medium, large, like before. And then the object is only face or body. So it doesn't have all of the same settings that it would have on the computer. But just go ahead and choose your settings that you want to go with. I would recommend just doing the scan here and sending the data to the computer to do the processing, or you're going to chew through the battery pretty quickly, and it's just not going to be as effective. All right, so let's go ahead and close this. Then if we go into new scan, it's going to give us all the data from the scanner, so we can move it around on whatever object we're trying to scan. Here, I just went ahead and put the little fountain here as an example, so you'll be able to see the device. If you click on these settings, you can switch between auto and manual and change the exposure and focus. Then it tells you how close or far. And then it's set to exclude flat base, and then this will switch that setting. And then you can just hit start once it has what you're looking for. And then you'll be able to start seeing the actual device. So right now, up there, it's a little bit closer. So you can see it's starting to see some of the actual fountain. So it's going to start capturing the frames, and it tells you how many frames you have down here. If you're looking compared to a computer, it's very minimal in comparison. And then if you have a little turntable, you'd want to run the turntable or to try to get around all the sides. If you don't, for something like this, I would recommend getting one, or a Lazy Susan, something that you can slowly turn around to get all the area. And then when you're done, just hit pause, and then you can just go back to home. It would save that. Scan data is saved automatically. And then from there, I would upload this to the computer. So on the computer, you'd have it set to import, and then you would just click this icon here, and then export to computer the entire project, and then you'll scan the QR code on the computer, and it will sync over, and it doesn't take very long to do it. So without going into too many details on actually using the scanner, that's how you'd use the mobile app. Overall, the mobile app is good if you're going to do anything like away from your computer or for larger objects. For smaller objects, I still think you're going to get better results scanning with the computer and with a turntable. It just depends what you're working with. And like with anything with 3D objects in general, so 3D scanning, printing, or whatever the case may be, it does take a little bit of time to get used to. All right, guys, let's go and get the software we need to get started, which is going to be the CR-Scan software. So go to the Creality website, go to Support and Software Download, and then go over to Creality Scan, and then download the latest Creality Scan for either Mac or Windows, depending upon what you're running on. And if you haven't already downloaded the mobile app, you can scan these QR codes over here and download that for whatever phone you're using as well. That'll help you later if you're trying to do any mobile scanning. But just go ahead and download it and run through the install. You just have to select default settings for everything, so the install is pretty straightforward. And then once you're done with that, go ahead and launch it. So with my screen recorder, the bottom is a little bit cut off. If there's anything relevant down there I need to show you, I will adjust the actual window on the screen. But if you don't have your camera connected, it's going to look like this. Scanner not detected, and most likely you're going to be connecting to your computer here using USB. If you plug it into a USB 2 port, it'll give you a warning saying it's plugged into USB 2. It will allow you to continue, but it just reduces the rate it can capture at. So I'm going to go and plug it into my USB 3 port. Then you'll see that it is shown as connected via USB 3. And actually, the first time you launch it, you're going to see the performance test results. So depending upon the specs of your computer, it's going to show you what it can actually do. So this computer here is a relatively powerful desktop. So it's got the RTX 4080 i9 processor and 32 gig of memory. So it's setting all the specs accordingly. So just hit confirm. Now you're just going to want to go into new project once it's connected. Going to give it a name. Test scan 2, and then if you want to change the path where it's actually saving these files to, you can, but I just have the one drive on this computer, and that's the M2 drive, so that's fine for me. But if you have multiple drives in your computer and one of them's SSD, one of them's not, I would put it on the SSD just so that you get better performance. So just go ahead and hit OK. Now, a couple things I want to point out here. There are some differences between your options here and on the mobile device. So on the mobile device, you don't have normal object type. You just have face and body, at least on my iPhone. That's all that came up for me. And then you have your large and small, I believe were the two options there. And then geometry and texture, you did not have marker. And then the exclude flat base, it's not a setting here, but it's once you're actually into the scan, it's a button at the bottom you can use. So I'm going to be scanning just like a little waterfall thing, just a decoration. So I'm just going to do normal, and it tells you all your settings here. And then the size, it falls into this size category. Then I'm going to go with marker. I did do a test before with geometry with the same thing, and I'll try to open that project later. Basically, I was not able to get the results that I wanted with geometry just because there's a lot of flat areas and it doesn't pick up all the differences correctly. So the marker, I got much better results. So I'm going to go ahead and hit scan, which is here at the bottom. It says scan. And excuse the mess in the background. I'm trying to clean and reorganize my office. Right. But here you want to make sure that your positioning is good. And as you can see over here, it's checking the different markers. You want to have at least 4 on every face. So what I do is I've got a little turntable, as you can see here, that's rotating. And I let it actually rotate all the way around once to make sure that there's no issues. On these smaller objects, I would recommend doing that. And actually, I might put a couple more markers in just because it's kind of jumping around a little bit here. So let's go ahead and do that really quick. You can adjust exposure manually or auto. I have them all set to auto. But if you have any type of issues, you can switch it to manual and adjust the exposure accordingly. My recommendation is if you are using smaller items that you're trying to scan, use the markers. If you have any type of issues at all, just switch over to the markers. It makes things much easier. So let's go ahead and add some markers to here. So I'm just gonna let it go around and kind of show where I'm putting it. So here, the back looks okay. I'm actually gonna put one here just because, and they should be decently spaced apart so there's no issues or duplicates. Then you can see it's picking up the markers as it's turning. I'm actually gonna put more on the inside here. So I'm going to look at the model and kind of go off camera, add a couple more markers where I think they're needed, and then bring it back on and show you what I got. So when I put this back on, as you can see, I added additional markers. It looks pretty good overall. I'm going to let it rotate once all the way around. If you don't have an automatic rotator like I have here, you can get like a Lazy Susan and move it manually, just go slow. That's a good option as well. They're not that expensive. You can pick them up at home stores and stuff for probably like 10 bucks or something that'll work. And then once this goes all the way around, I'm going to go ahead and start the scan. All right, it looked pretty good overall. So once we get to the front here, I'm just going to go ahead and start it. It'll be able to pick up and fill in the gaps. Now it's not picking up anything at the top, so I'm probably going to have to lift it up at one point just to kind of fill in the top to make sure it captures it. Let me see. But based on positioning, I'm actually a bit too far. Let me get it closer here. I'll make sure I'm covering all of it. And then it is picking up this base plate, even though it's set to not capture it. I've always had this issue with every scanner, so you basically just have to chop it off in editing. All right, I'm just going to start it here at the back just to get it started. So just go over to here, hit start. If you need to pause it for any reason, you can just hit complete scan or pause. It's going to just rotate through and capture all the data. As you can see here, it is capturing a lot pretty quickly. With the mobile phone, you can't get this type of capture rate. It doesn't have the power to do it. So let's see after a turn or two what it looks like. Now you can combine multiple objects if you wanted to. So like if you were to scan this with one side and then take another scan with a different angle or whatnot, and then you can combine those together. That's outside of the scope of this video, so I'm not going to cover it. But I just wanted to mention it. This is really just a video getting started, get my initial thoughts. See, it looks like it's doing a pretty good job getting most of the areas. I typically let it go around twice, and that tends to be good enough, but it will vary based on the object you're scanning. You can see the top here is still kind of hollow. So what I'm going to do is just raise the camera up a little bit just to get that. And then put it back down. And as long as you have enough tracking points, it should follow it. If you're missing tracking points, it might go to tracking lost. But then as soon as it gets back into the right angle, it will pick up where it left off. So once we get to the front, I'm actually going to pause it, see what it looks like. It looks pretty good. So if I pause it, you can see it kind of gives you an image. It looks okay overall. Everything was looking green. So I'm going to just hit complete scanning. And then it gives me my image here. We have this little piece up here. We'll have to, I don't even know what that was. Remove that. And then our base here, we're going to have to remove. But outside of that, it looks like it picked up everything pretty well. Obviously in here is going to be hollow and the bottom is too, but we'll fix that during the scan. During the processing. But before we start processing, let me go back to one of the tests I did with it on geometry. So just go to home. It will close the project. It'll save it. I think it was this one here. So it had a lot of extra data like around the edges here that has to be cleaned up and removed because it didn't know where everything ended. And just a lot of miscellaneous stuff. I almost thought it was shifting. And that was after one round of editing. I don't have the original one there still, but just wanted to show you an example between the geometry versus the marker. So you can see here, it's much cleaner around the edges, a little bit, but overall a lot better. So if you hit one-click processing, it will go through and process all of the different items with it as is. But if you make any edits and you hit one-click processing, it will erase any of your edits. So it doesn't really work out in most cases unless you have like the perfect scan. But what I'm gonna do is start removing some of the stuff I want out. So a couple things to do that. Just looking at the items on the bottom. If you want to rotate the object, so you hold the left mouse button, you can rotate to different angles. If you hold the right, you can move it on the pane. And for the selections, you want to hold shift and then select. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and remove this. So I'm just going to switch over. Lasso's fine for this. So I'm just going to hold shift and then delete. And then there's a couple things on this top I want removed. You can see here where it's kind of off. So I'm going to do the same thing, just do shift. Now, this can be a little bit tedious at times, especially if you're doing a model that needs to be really accurate. But this is just for a test and for play. All right, so that's probably good enough there. I think that's all okay. Maybe right here, get rid of a couple of these. Then we want to get rid of the base. Getting rid of the base is kind of a challenge to me because it's hard to know exactly where everything is flat, especially with a model like this. Because if you're looking at it, it looks like it's flat, but it might be angled. Like, let me switch over to rectangle. So if I just go straight across, like if I was to remove this base, and then I go across like this, I turn it, you can see it's going down. So you don't want that. So you have to make sure that you're getting this flat. All right, so I'm gonna give this a try. Just do a rectangle selection. See how that looks. Okay, that looks okay. Then obviously I gotta get rid of this. The bottom might not, I mean, it's going to be flat when it's all done, but it might not be completely straight. But let's go ahead and go through the processing. Like I said, if you hit one-click processing now, you're going to lose all the changes you just made. All right, so let's go and not do that. Let's go and go to the next one. I hit marker or remove markers. You could leave it at auto, but choose your settings. You can play with the sensitivity and stuff. It will adjust quality, etc. You really can't see a lot of it until it's actually done though. So let's go ahead and hit that, let it process. Now it will take a little bit of time based on your computer or what you have going on in the background too. All right, so the point cloud is done. I want to take a quick look. Overall, it looks okay. All of these openings will be filled in the next one when we do the mesh. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Let's go down to mesh. Make sure you have hole filling selected unless it's not going to. So just select that. And for some reason the file got corrupted, so I'm gonna have to rescan and get back to this point. This has happened one other time, but I'm gonna go and do that back off camera, then we'll get back to this point and then we'll continue the video. All right, I got a new model here, kind of went through it quicker, so hopefully it's okay, but I've got the point cloud done, so let's go and do the mesh again. I don't know why it failed on that one last time, but it was the second time it happened. This time I did the one-click auto processing all the way through, then went through and did my edits. It took more time, but that seems to be more stable, though it does take more time. It's probably just a bug. I'm sure it'll be fixed at some point. All right. I mean, you can see here the bottom is still a bit odd. Like I said, it's hard to get it flat sometimes. All right, I think at this point this is good enough. Now you can do the full color mapping if you want. I'm just gonna export this and go ahead and kick off that. So I'm just gonna export it as an STL. So test water, all right. And then import it into my slicer. So I'm gonna send this to my X+3 printer. So I'm gonna go back over to the plate. Go to import this, see what it looks like. All right, first let me go and put this down, place on face. Yeah, so like I said, not perfect, but good enough. I mean, that's just me learning the software, it has nothing to do with the scanner itself. The scanner is good. Then you can rotate it if you want it straight or whatever. But yeah, that looks okay. Now I'm gonna go ahead and slice this. So I'm just using PLA. Let's do 15% infill, no supports. Actually, we might need supports for this. Let me see what this looks like. Actually, it's not even putting any supports in. So I'm just going to remove them entirely. I guess this overhang isn't large enough to worry about it. It's not that big. It's like a little over an inch, I think. All right, so let's just slice it. Now it's giving me a warning about supports. And then if you want to, since the bottom is a little bit uneven, one way to kind of get around that would be to print it on a raft. But I'm just going to leave it as is, print it, and see what happens. So let me go ahead and send this to the printer. Upload and print, and we'll see what it ends up looking like. All right, one other thing I wanted to show you here at the computer. Let me go back to Creality Scan software. Let me go to Home. If you recorded a scan on your phone, you're going to want to edit it on the computer. So you want to go to Import from Phone, and then you'll go into the Creality app on your phone. And then like I said, like when you're in the app, you want to click on this icon on the model. So from there, once you click on that, you'll hit Export to Computer. It'll be the whole project. And then it has a scan QR code at the bottom. So we go ahead and scan that. And it is now sending that over. Your phone has to be on the same network as the computer. I just thought I'd throw that out there. And then here's that awful scan I was messing around with. It was a statue, just recording it from one angle, and it didn't work out very well. But that shows you the process to import from your phone. All right, guys, so that covered everything you needed to know to get started with the Creality Ferret Pro. I did want to spend a minute here kind of talking about my initial thoughts on the device. As you were able to see from the video, I was able to successfully scan this water fountain thing here and create a 3D object and print it. So I've got that here. There's definitely a learning curve, but I believe that's true across all 3D scanners. I've got a couple other ones, and it takes a little bit to get used to as far as getting this scan right, and the software is all different, and that does take a little bit of getting used to as well, as you can see from in the video. Just trying to get the bottom of this cut off flush, so I was able to print it. Was a little bit of a challenge. I'm sure once I've done it a couple times, it will become much easier. And then a couple tips here on scanning in general. If you're doing anything with a lot of flat edges like this, just use the markers. They're not expensive. You can get them really cheap on Amazon. And like I showed in the video, I was able to get much better scan results using the actual markers. And then I did like the portability of this device. I like the battery bank and everything it comes with, and the Wi-Fi bridge. Just a reminder, if you are using the mobile app, if you turn off the power or reset the app, you're probably going to have to go back in and reconnect to the Wi-Fi bridge from your Wi-Fi settings on whatever mobile device you're using. So not really anything to worry about. It's just if you see it disconnected, that's probably what happened. It probably just fell back to your default network for whatever reason, probably being power cycled or something. So just a little tip there. And then a small tip on the scanning. If you're doing scans on devices like this, get your little turntable, either a powered one or a Lazy Susan that you can rotate slowly yourself. It'll help quite a bit. And then for objects like this, use the markers. I mean, they're not expensive. You can get them pretty cheap on Amazon, and the results are much better, as you're able to see it from in the video, versus just selecting, I think it was geometry or whatever I had selected. The markers were able to give me much better results. But overall, I do think this is a very capable product, and it is at a very solid price point. I do also believe that as more competition comes in the market, we are going to see a wider variety of 3D scanners available, and the prices will probably drop a little bit more at some point. But at least now they're at a point where they're reasonable. You go back a couple years, you're probably looking at over $1,000 a lot of times for anything decent. Technology has advanced quite a bit, and it's made getting a hold of a 3D scanner, at least for consumer purposes, pretty reasonable. If you have any questions about what I covered in this video or would like to see any other videos, go and leave a comment below or join us on Discord. Thanks.